Hello and welcome to the channel. I am the Wizard of Alt, and today I am going to be taking you through an altcoin that I have been buying. I have been building a position and I think will trade very well and make some lovely profit. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe and comment and let me know what you want to see in future videos. The token in question today is one called PEAQ. Now, if we have a look here at CoinMarketCap, we can see that PEAQ is currently trading at just shy of 13 cents per token. We have a market cap of 97.1 million, volume of 4.41 million, and it's trading at a fully diluted valuation of $546 million so far. In terms of the supply, we see total supply 4.26 billion PEAQ with a circulating supply of 757. So there are quite a lot of unlocks still to come on this token. And if you look on this chart, we have a big run up to a peak of just shy of 74 cents, and then this grind down as we saw the market go fairly kaput since Donald Trump came in, before stopping in this accumulation zone. Now we'll dive deeper into the charts and why I took the position and where I'm potentially looking to close parts of the trade, hopefully for profit. So if we look at where you can buy it, so from a spot perspective, we see BitGet, MEXC, Gate.io, KuCoin, Crypto.com, BingX, Bitmark, Bitfum, XT. So we see some big exchanges on there. And if we look at where you can trade this from a futures perspective, so this is available on Bybit, on Gate.io, on BitGet, on MEXC and XT, and then some other exchanges here. So what is PEAQ? So if we click here and about, so PEAQ is a layer 1 blockchain powering the machine economy. It is designed to power decentralized physical infrastructure networks, otherwise known as DPINs, and the billions of devices, robots and vehicles that run on them. At the time of launch, PEAQ is home to over 50 DPINs in over 20 industries. So if we have a look at their website, we can see here, lovely website, powering the machine economy. So build DPINs for energy, mobility, connectivity and more. And we see some big brands here that have adopted. So it's been adopted by Bosch, by MasterCard, by Airbus, by Continental and by NTT. So if we come and have a look at here, so some of the apps, we will dive deeper into a couple of these, but we see some of the apps that it's available to be built on. In numbers, so $3 billion value of devices on DPINs on PEAQ. There's over 6 million machines, vehicles, robots and devices on the PEAQ network. We have over 50 DPINs building on this PEAQ network in 22 industries. So if we have a look at use cases for PEAQ, so they have split them out into 4 domains. So we have land, sea, sky and space. So if we go down here, so from the land perspective, we have 5G networks, we have things such as AI data marketplace, we have air quality monitoring, autonomous taxis, cloud gaming, 3D printing, connected fashion, we have cybersecurity. We have all of these really developed industries that are looking to go more autonomous, and this is potentially a network for them to move into. That's from a land perspective. From a sea perspective, we have boat renting, boat sharing, jet ski rental, potentially one to have post bull run with your gains from some of your cryptos once we get to the lovely part where everything is brilliant and rosy and green and everyone's happy, and not currently in the fairly miserable state that crypto is currently in. And if we look at Sky, so we've got cargo delivery, drone internet and drone delivery, and space, satellite crop monitoring, and satellite internet. In some of these use cases here, decentralized energy markets, machine liquidity mining, we've got some exchanges and borrowing. If we go on here, we've got some automated market makers, DeFi instruments, and so forth. So if we look at some of the projects that are operating within the PEAQ ecosystem so far, we see some names here in various spaces. So decentralized serverless cloud, we've got a net zero data energy, we've got some smart homes, we've got some electric vehicle charging, we've got some cybersecurity, we've got some agriculture. So there's a real mix of different industries that are on PEAQ. All of it really, really exciting. We have Silencio. So what is PEAQ's vision? Essentially, they want to be able to reward the input of data into these machine devices, which, with the use cases, hopefully will aim to improve the world in which we live on through those use cases. So what does the token have to do with it? So the token is the native utility token. It is what fuels the network. And being a layer 1, this will be used for gas, it will be used for transaction. So we see every transaction made on PEAQ incurs a fee, which is paid in PEAQ tokens. We have some governance and we have some staking. So in terms of the tokenomics, we have a breakdown here, which if we look at here, we can see some of the funding rounds that PEAQ has been involved in and some of the names. So we see this seed round here where they raised $2.5 million back in 2021, raised $6 million in 2022 from some of these names. Then a 15 million round with some of these names and some big names. You've got Animoca Brands, the Spartan Group, the ICO where they raised 20 million, and then the launch pool. And if we look at vesting, so this token does have some unlocks coming up that begin in May. So some unlocks coming up, fairly sizable, but they are vested over quite a significant period of time, and with the price where it is, there's potential upside. So what are the use cases that are being built on? So this interesting one is Silencio. This is where users input data into the system about the noise they hear. And the aim of this is to essentially build a map around noise pollution. So if we go on here, we see this map of the globe, and it maps out various points in which noise pollution has been registered. So what am I looking at in terms of PEAQ? So if I get this chart up here, this shows the levels I'm looking at, the position I've been building, and what I'm potentially looking for. So if we zoom out onto the high time frame, so on the daily, we see from the launch, big pump up, big retracement, and then this big send up to here where we said on this chart on the KuCoin exchange, it topped out at 75 cents. Pulled back, send, and then we see this big drop before it fell into a range that I was quite interested in. So we see it dropped below the initial pull-off, and as it came down, we saw it bottomed out here, had a nice little rally up, began coming down, and this is where my interest peaked, if you pardon the pun. So the areas I looked at are, so if we make this slightly bigger, so we can see here where it bottomed out, I drew out a level which was of interest to me. So we see this 0.95 cents. Now, strong bounce off it. We see it comes and retests these highs here. Nice liquidity wicks before coming back down. And this is the area of interest for me, is I wanted to see how it reacted off this level. We see it bounced. So I decided to average in around here. This wasn't just a single entry, this was a layered entry, so I took entries at various points within this range. Now, the levels I have mapped out are, so we see this level here, this 13 cents, where it's continually come and tested the wicks, and we see some of the wicks go through it. So this was an initial level for me to take my first bit of profit out. Now, the way I typically trade is I'll go in with a relatively heavy position, and I'll aim to get different amounts out as we go up. But this first element here is the first sort of easy take profit. It lets me take capital out of the trade for a relatively good profit, and it reduces the risk. And at that point, it frees up the space to then sort of take out a bit, and gives you capital to go back in should it come back. So I took some profit out on this level here. The next level I'm looking at is, we see when we had that run up from the bottom, we see these two candles on the daily here, that big liquidity wick up, took out this, and so this remains a really, really, really key level. So I'm expecting this level of liquidity to be taken, and once this is taken, we may see some consolidation before a push up to this level here, this 20 cents, and then looking at where I exit the majority of the trade, and then we'll reassess, is we see this big liquidity grab here on the 20th of February, all the way up to the top of the wick at just shy of 26 cents. Now, between this area here, we see this level was drawn out due to, we can see quite a lot of volume around these levels. Now, areas, there's likely to be a lot of profit taking and a lot of orders set within this level here. So if I draw out a box, so if I draw out a rectangle to cover this box here, there's likely to be quite a lot of volume in the area. So if we zoom out, this area here is key, and it will probably, if we hit this, we may cool off back then, and then I will potentially look at where I re-enter, which potentially could be this 20 cents mark. Now, the trade I am in, so from the entry point here to that top liquidity wick, we can see that provides an unleveraged return of 143%. Now, that's pretty good. I would say that's a very good return, especially given the current market. So that essentially if you were trading on a 2x, for example, or a 3x, you'll be getting a fairly good return from that with fairly minimal risk. Now, in terms of where I've got a stop loss and why, so on this, my stop loss is, we can see my stop loss, this isn't exact, parts of my trade are hidden, but we can see the rationale for my stop loss is, once we go below here, we will then set, if we go below here, we set a new bottom. And I'm not interested in this setup if we hit a new bottom. My thinking is invalidated, and at that point you take risk off the table. I think if we go below here, we get into a treacherous territory where we may see potential delistings. Now, we can see we've cleared quite well off that. I've given myself a little bit of breathing space below that mark. However, after we've touched this, I've taken some risk out of the trade, and so I can potentially look to enter it. Should we come down and look to test some of the entry area again, I can have another nibble. Now, all being well, if we hit that box, so if I put this back on, if we hit that box there, consolidate and bounce off, we could potentially see a bounce here at this level at 20 cents. We could potentially come back and see a bounce at this level at 13 cents. So if we go on indicators and FRVP, fixed range volume profile, we can have a look at just where the volume sits on this. So if we drag this across to here, so we can see a huge amount of volume just above my in my entry range at 11 cents. If we look up at where there's potentially volume, so we see volume voids here, which is why I've got my take profits layered. Is I think once we go up past this liquidity wick here and out of this high volume zone, we could then potentially see some really rapid price movements through these. If we look up at where we've got volume, so there's a lot of volume around this 35 cents mark, which could provide a level of resistance. So if I was holding on to a runner, for instance, or if I entered on a retrace here, I would potentially look to start scaling out of that position here just before we hit there. As we with some of this may be front run, but you would potentially look to take profits here. If we clear there, we see there's not a whole lot here. So should we push past the top of these wicks here, there is a lot of space for price to move very quickly up here and up through here. Now this is an interesting one, and I think one to keep an eye on. Anyway, if you would like to see me break down some more of the positions I hold, let me know. Drop a comment. If there's any tokens you'd like me to break down from a technical analysis point of view, looking at the levels I've placed and why and what the rationale is, please drop them in the comments. Give the video a like, give it a subscribe to my channel, drop a comment, and thank you for supporting me, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.